Welcome, traveler. Tonight we are on the steppe. The year is 1220. The grass stretches in every direction, further than the eye can follow. Above it, a sky so vast it seems to have no edges, and on a low hill, alone, sits a man the world has learned to fear. His name is Temujin, but everyone calls him Genghis Khan. Tonight he is not making war. He is simply looking at the land, at the stars, at everything that is now his. Come and sit beside him. Let the endless steppe carry you to sleep. The Mongolian steppe is unlike any landscape Genghis Khan has ever needed to describe to someone who has not seen it, because everyone he knows has seen it. It is simply what the world is to a Mongol. Grass, endless grass, rippling in wind that never fully stops. Hills, low and rolling, repeating into the distance with a rhythm that has no beginning and no end. Sky, more sky than land, if such a thing can be measured. A dome that seems to curve down to meet the grass at every horizon. 360 degrees of horizon, all of it visible from any high point. At night, the sky becomes something else entirely. The stars here are not like the stars anywhere else, or so travelers from other lands have told him. Travelers from Persia, from China, from places with cities and walls and crowded skies dimmed by smoke and lamplight. They have stood on this steppe and looked up and gone quiet. Genghis Khan has gotten used to this reaction. The first time someone from a city sees the steppe sky, they stop talking, sometimes for a long time. He understands why. He has lived under this sky his entire life, and it still on certain nights stops him too. He is 58 years old. Most men of the steppe do not reach this age. The life is hard. The cold winters, the constant movement, the wars that have shaped his life from childhood. He has scars from more wounds than he can easily count. His body carries the accumulated damage of a lifetime spent on horseback, in battle, in conditions that would break most men. But tonight, sitting on this hill, none of that matters. He is simply a man, looking at the land. He sits cross-legged, in the manner that is comfortable to him after a lifetime of sitting this way, around fires, in council, on the ground of 100 different camps across 1,000 miles of territory. His clothes are simple, practical, the deal, the traditional robe, in dark wool, suited to the cold that comes even in summer once the sun goes down. No crown, no elaborate decoration. He has never needed these things to be recognized. His presence alone does this. The particular quality of a man who has, through will and skill, and a kind of ruthless clarity that few humans possess, changed the shape of the world. Tonight, he has come to this hill alone. His guards are nearby, not far. He is never entirely alone. This is not permitted for a man in his position, but far enough that he is, for practical purposes, by himself, with the grass and the sky and his thoughts. He was not born to this. This is something he thinks about more often than people might expect. He was born Temujin, son of a minor chieftain named Yesuge. His father was poisoned by rival Tatars when Temujin was 9 years old. The clan that had followed his father abandoned the family afterward. A widow and her children were not worth protecting by the brutal calculus of steppe politics. His mother, Hoelun, kept the family alive through years that Temujin remembers, with a clarity that has not faded with time, years of genuine hunger, years of moving constantly, hiding from enemies who would have killed a rival's sons without hesitation. He learned in those years things that he has never unlearned, that the world does not owe you safety, that strength is the only reliable currency, that alliances can be made and broken according to necessity, and that sentiment is a luxury that the genuinely vulnerable cannot afford. He also learned something else, something he has thought about more as he has gotten older. He learned what it is to have nothing, to be, by every measure that the steppe recognizes, worthless, a boy with no clan, no protection, no future. Everything that came after, and an extraordinary amount came after, was built by someone who remembers in his body what it felt like to have nothing. The steppe, when Temujin was young, was a patchwork. Mongol tribes, Tatar tribes, Merkit, Naiman, Kerait, dozens of groups, related by language and culture, but divided by feud, by competition for grazing land, by ancient grievances that everyone remembered and no one could fully explain the origins of. War between these tribes was constant, not the kind of war that conquers and holds territory. The steppe is too vast for that, too empty of the fixed points that make conquest meaningful. Raiding war, cattle taken, women taken, revenge for previous raids, a cycle that had continued as far as anyone knew, forever. Temujin ended this cycle, not quickly. It took him more than 20 years, from his early adulthood until he was approaching 50. 20 years of alliances and betrayals, of battles won and battles barely survived, of a slow accumulation of followers and territory and reputation. By 1206, when he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler, at a great assembly of all the Mongol and allied tribes, the steppe was unified for the first time in living memory. All of it, every tribe, under one law, one leader, one purpose. He remembers that assembly, the white banners, the assembled chiefs, many of them men who had been his enemies now bound to him by oath, the particular silence of a moment when something genuinely new begins. He had stood before them and felt, for the first time in his life, something he did not have words for. Not triumph, exactly. More like arrival. The sense of having reached a point he had been moving toward his entire life, without fully knowing it was the destination. Unification of the steppe was not the end. It was, he understood almost immediately, the beginning. A unified Mongolia had something it had never had before, a population that, instead of fighting itself, could be directed outward. And outward there was an enormous world. To the south, the Jin Empire, ruling northern China, wealthy, walled cities, millions of people. To the west, the Khwarezmian Empire, controlling Central Asia and parts of Persia, wealthy in different ways. The trade routes, the cities of Samarkand and Bukhara, names that meant, to a Mongol of that time, almost unimaginable riches. Beyond those, further west, kingdoms and empires that Temujin, even now, has only partial knowledge of. Russia, the lands beyond. Europe, which his generals speak of as if it were the edge of a map rather than a real place. The campaigns of the last 14 years have taken Mongol armies into all of these places. Cities have fallen that no one believed could fall. Armies many times the size of the forces sent against them have been destroyed. The world, as it was understood by the people who lived in it before, has been fundamentally rearranged. He thinks about this sometimes, sitting on hills like this one, the scale of what has happened, not with the satisfaction that someone might expect, with something closer to wonder. The same wonder, perhaps, that the travelers feel looking at the steppe sky for the first time, the recognition that something has occurred which is larger than any single person's capacity to fully comprehend, even the person at its center. What Genghis Khan built, more than an empire, is a military system unlike anything that existed before it. He thinks about this with the particular satisfaction of a craftsman considering his finest work. The Mongol army is built around the horse. Every warrior mounted, often with multiple horses per man, allowing speeds of movement that no other army in the world can match. It is built around discipline, units of 10, organized into hundreds, into thousands, into 10,000s, each with clear command structures, clear signals, clear expectations. It is built around communication, a network of messengers and relay stations that can move information across the vast territories under Mongol control faster than anyone believed possible. And it is built around something less tangible, a culture. Every Mongol man is, from childhood, a horseman and an archer. This is not military training in the way that other nations train soldiers, recruiting farmers and craftsmen and teaching them to fight. It is simply what a Mongol is. The army Genghis Khan commands is not separate from Mongol society. It is Mongol society, organized for war. This is, he believes, the deepest source of Mongol success. Other empires raise armies. The Mongols simply are an army when the need arises, and a society of herders and families when it does not. The same people, the same skills, applied to different purposes as circumstances require. He has seen cities that no Mongol had ever imagined. Samarkand, Bukhara, cities of stone and tile, with populations larger than the entire population of Mongolia. He remembers his first sight of Bukhara, the walls, the domes, the sheer density of human construction. A city that had existed for centuries, that contained libraries and schools, and markets selling goods from places whose names he had never heard. And he remembers what happened to it. He does not flinch from this memory, though it is not a comfortable one. Bukhara resisted, and Bukhara fell, and what happened afterward was, by any measure, catastrophic for the people who lived there. He has been told by scholars who survived and who he later brought into his service that the destruction of cities like Bukhara and Samarkand will be remembered for centuries, that it represents one of the great catastrophes in the history of human civilization. He does not argue with this assessment. He understands it, but he also understands something else, something that the scholars, for all their learning, sometimes struggle to accept. That war, real war, on the scale he has waged it, is not a moral project. It does not have a clean accounting. Cities that resisted were destroyed. Cities that submitted were largely spared. This was not cruelty for its own sake, though cruelty was certainly part of it. It was a message, sent in the only language that, in his experience, truly travels across the vast distances and many languages of his empire. The message worked. Cities began to submit without resistance. Once the consequences of resistance became known, this saved in the long run more lives than it cost. By his calculation, though he knows others would calculate differently, he thinks about this on nights like tonight, not with guilt exactly. Guilt is not a framework he has much use for, but with the weight of a man who has made decisions whose consequences are larger than almost anyone in history has had to carry. He has 4 sons by his principal wife, Berthe, Yochi, Chagatai, Ogedei, and Tolui, each of them different, each of them in different ways, extensions of what he has built, and also increasingly separate from it. Yochi the eldest commands forces of the west, has pushed Mongol power into the steppes north of the Caspian and Black Seas, into territory that no Mongol army had previously reached. Chagatai is fierce, direct, perhaps the most purely military-minded of the four. Ogedei is, Genghis Khan has noticed this for years, perhaps the most naturally suited to governance. Less interested in war for its own sake, more interested in the administration of what has been conquered. Tolui, the youngest, has his father's energy and is closest to him in temperament, in the ways that matter. He has thought, increasingly in recent years, about succession, about what happens to all of this, the empire, the system, the vast territories under Mongol control, when he is no longer alive to hold it together. This is not a comfortable thought. He has built something unprecedented in scale, but empires, he knows from history, and the Mongols, despite their reputation, study history carefully. Empires often fracture at the moment of succession. The unity that one man's will can impose does not automatically transfer to that man's successors. He has begun making arrangements, has begun, in council with his sons and his most trusted advisors, working out how the empire might be divided in ways that preserve its strength rather than fragmenting it into competing pieces. This work is not finished, may never be finished entirely. Some problems do not have final solutions, only ongoing management. But it occupies more of his thinking these days than the campaigns themselves. The traditional religion of the Mongols centers on Tengri, the sky, not a god in the way that the religions of conquered peoples understand gods, not a figure with a story, a personality, a temple. Tengri is the sky itself, the eternal blue sky that covers everything. Genghis Khan has always understood his authority, on some level, as derived from Tengri. Not in a way he has needed to explain or justify much. It is simply understood among Mongols that his extraordinary success reflects the favor of the eternal sky. He has met, in his conquests, many other religions, Buddhism in its various forms among the peoples of the East, Islam, dominant across the territories of Central Asia and Persia, Christianity, various forms of it, practiced by some of the peoples of the steppe and beyond. His approach to all of this has been consistent, and it is something he is, in his own way, quietly proud of. He has not required conversion, has not persecuted any of these religions, as long as their practitioners accepted Mongol rule. His own shamans, the traditional religious figures of Mongol culture, travel with him, perform the ceremonies that mark important moments, read the signs that guide decisions about timing and direction. But he has also at various points consulted Buddhist monks, Muslim scholars, even a Christian or two, has listened to what they say about the nature of the world, of the divine, of what happens after death. He has not adopted any of these frameworks fully, but he has taken what seemed useful from each. This pragmatism, applied to religion as it has been applied to military tactics, to administration, to almost everything, is, he believes, part of why the system he has built has not collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. He does not require the world to agree about ultimate things. He requires only that the world accept Mongol authority over practical things. Beyond that, people can believe what they believe. Tonight, under the steppe sky, he thinks about Tengri, about the sky that has watched over every moment of his life, the boy who had nothing, the unification of the tribes, the campaigns, the cities, the sons now grown, commanding armies of their own across territories, vaster than any single human mind can hold, all of it under this same sky, unchanged, indifferent perhaps, or perhaps not indifferent. He does not know, and has stopped needing to know. The sky is simply there, has always been there, will be there after he is gone. There is something in this thought that he finds, on nights like tonight, genuinely peaceful. Nothing in the Mongol world matters more than horses. Genghis Khan has thought about this many times, and he has never found a way to overstate it. The horse is transportation. The horse is the basis of warfare. The horse provides milk, which is fermented into erag, a mildly alcoholic drink that is central to Mongol social life. In extremity, the horse provides meat and even blood, which can be drawn from a vein without killing the animal, providing sustenance during long campaigns when other food is unavailable. A Mongol without a horse is, in a fundamental sense, not fully himself. He learned to ride before he could properly walk. This is true of every Mongol child, not an exaggeration specific to him. The horses of the steppe are small by the standards of some other cultures, smaller than the war horses of European knights, smaller than the elegant horses bred in Persia and Arabia, but they are extraordinarily tough, bred for a climate that swings from extreme summer heat to winter cold, that kills the unprepared, capable of surviving on grass alone, even when that grass is buried under snow and must be found by pawing through it, capable of being ridden for days, covering distances that exhaust riders on finer, faster but less durable horses. Genghis Khan's own horse, the one tethered nearby, grazing while he sits on this hill, is an animal he has had for 11 years, not young anymore, showing some gray around the muzzle, but still strong, still steady. He has ridden this horse across more territory than most men will see in their lifetimes, has trusted this horse in situations where trust meant survival. There is a relationship here that he does not often articulate, because Mongols do not typically articulate such things. But it is real, and it matters to him in ways that few human relationships do. The horse asks nothing of him except care, and gives in return something that no human relationship quite provides, a kind of uncomplicated reliability. He looks over at the horse now, grazing in the darkness, a shape barely visible against the deeper darkness of the hillside. Old friend, he thinks, though he would never say this aloud. Earlier this evening, before he came to this hill, he ate. The meal was simple. It almost always is even now, even with the resources of an empire available to him. Mutton, boiled, some of the hard cheese that Mongol families make and carry, which lasts for months and provides sustenance during long journeys. Eirag, the fermented mare's milk, to drink. This is more or less what he has eaten his entire life. He has been offered in the conquered cities foods of extraordinary variety and sophistication, Persian dishes with spices he cannot name, Chinese foods prepared with techniques that took, he was told, years to master. He has tried these things, has in some cases genuinely enjoyed them, but he returns always to the simple foods of the steppe, not from stubbornness exactly, from something more like recognition. This food is what sustained him through the years when there was little of it, through the campaigns, through everything. There is a kind of loyalty in continuing to eat simply, even when elaborate alternatives are available, a way of remembering, with his body, where he came from. He thinks sometimes about the cooks in the conquered cities, men who have spent their lives perfecting dishes of extraordinary complexity, who would be appalled, perhaps, to see the ruler of the largest empire in history eating boiled mutton by choice. He does not mind their hypothetical disapproval. The mutton is good. The erog is good. This is enough. Partie 12, le messager. Somewhere out there, in the darkness beyond what he can see, messengers are riding. This is always true. At any given moment across the vast territories of the Mongol Empire, messengers are moving. The system, called the Urte, consists of relay stations spaced at intervals across the major routes of the empire. A messenger rides hard to one station, exchanges his exhausted horse for a fresh one, and continues, or hands his message to a fresh rider who continues in his place. Using this system, messages can travel distances in days that would take ordinary travelers weeks or months. Genghis Khan considers this system, not the armies, not the conquests themselves, to be perhaps his most important achievement. Because an empire that cannot communicate across its own territory is not in any meaningful sense a single empire. It is a collection of separate places that happen to be ruled by the same person, drifting apart the moment that person's direct attention moves elsewhere. The Urte changes this. A decision made here on this hill tonight could, if it needed to, reach his son Yochi in the western steppes within weeks, could reach administrators in the conquered cities of Persia, in the territories of northern China, faster than anyone in those places believed possible before the Mongols arrived. This is what makes the empire real, rather than theoretical. The roads, the relay stations, the thousands of horses kept ready at hundreds of points across an almost incomprehensible expanse of territory. He thinks about the messengers riding tonight. Men he will never meet, performing a function he created, carrying information that connects the far edges of what he has built, each one a small piece of something vast, each one essential. Partie 13, Sika Genghis Khan Craint. There are not many things that Genghis Khan fears. He has examined this about himself over the years, with the same clear-eyed practicality he applies to military and political questions. He does not fear death, particularly, or rather he fears it the way any sensible person fears it, as an inevitability to be delayed but not avoided, not as something that disturbs his sleep. He does not fear his enemies, not anymore. The enemies that remain are manageable. The empire's strength is, for now, unmatched. What he fears, and this is something he has admitted to almost no one, is dissolution, not military defeat, something slower and harder to fight. The possibility that what he has built, unified from chaos, extended across an unprecedented territory, held together by systems he designed and refined over decades, might, after his death, simply come apart, not through any single dramatic failure, through the slow accumulation of small failures, sons who do not cooperate as well as they should, territories that drift, administratively, toward independence, the Urte falling into disrepair, the military discipline that took generations to instill, eroding within a generation or two of less demanding leadership. He has seen this pattern before, has studied the history of other empires, with the help of the scholars now in his service. Empires that achieve extraordinary things under one extraordinary leader, and then fragment. He does not know if what he has built will avoid this fate. He has done what he can. The arrangements for succession, the systems designed to be self-sustaining rather than dependent on his personal presence. but he is honest with himself about the limits of what any single person can guarantee about the future. This is perhaps the one genuinely humbling thought that visits him with any regularity, that he might build the largest empire in human history, and that history might, nonetheless, simply continue past it, that the steppe will still be here, the grass, the sky, the rhythm of the seasons, long after the empire, in whatever form it takes, is something else entirely. He finds, strangely, that this thought does not trouble him as much as it perhaps should. The steppe continuing, the sky continuing. There is something right about that, even if his own creation does not continue in the same form. His wife Bertha is at the main camp, several miles from here. He thinks about her often. They've been married for more than 40 years. She was taken captive early in their marriage by a rival clan, an event that shaped much of his early life, the war he fought to recover her, the complicated questions about the parentage of their eldest son Yochi that have followed the family ever since, and that he has never allowed to be openly discussed, though everyone is aware of them. Whatever the truth of that question, Bertha has been for more than 40 years the most consistent presence in his life, has seen him as no one else has, not as Genghis Khan, universal ruler, but as Temujin, the boy whose family she joined when both of them were young and the world was much smaller. He visits the main camp tomorrow. We'll see her and his sisters and the grandchildren. There are many grandchildren now, the empire's next generation already being born into a world utterly different from the one he was born into. He thinks about what these grandchildren will inherit, not just territory, though the territory is vast beyond anything previous generations could have imagined, but also a name, a reputation, expectations. Being the grandchild of Genghis Khan is, he suspects, both an extraordinary gift and an extraordinary burden. He hopes, this is one of the few purely hopeful thoughts he allows himself, that they will find their own ways to be useful. Not merely inheritors of what he built, but builders themselves, in whatever ways the future requires. The moon is rising now, over the eastern horizon, nearly full. Its light spreads across the steppe with a particular quality that Genghis Khan has watched his entire life and never tired of. The grass, which during the day is simply grass, green or gold depending on the season, moving in wind, becomes something else under moonlight, silver, shifting. The wind's movement through it, visible as patterns of light and shadow, that ripple outward in all directions. The hills, which during the day show their gentle contours clearly, become softer under moonlight, their edges less distinct, merging slightly into the sky at the horizon. He has seen this moonrise from 1,000 different places across the territories he controls, from hills very like this one, in the heart of Mongolia, from the walls of conquered cities, looking out over landscapes utterly different from the steppe, desert, mountains, the cultivated fields of settled peoples. The moon does not change. This is something he has thought about, the way the moon connects all the places he has been, all the campaigns, all the years, wherever he has stood, under whatever sky. The same moon has risen, has watched in its way everything that has happened, the boy with nothing, the unification, the wars, the cities that fell, the same moon rising over all of it. He watches it climb now, here, on this hill, on this particular night, and feels, as he often does at this time, a kind of stillness, not the absence of thought. His mind even now, even at 58, rarely stops entirely, but a quieting, a settling, the particular peace that comes from watching something that has always been there and will always be there, regardless of what any human being does or fails to do. For a people who travel as much as the Mongols do, the stars are not merely beautiful, they are practical, essential. Genghis Khan can find direction by the stars as easily as anyone reads a map, more easily, since maps of much of the territory he has crossed did not exist before Mongol surveyors created them. The pole star, fixed, unmoving, always indicating north, has guided countless night marches. The patterns of other stars indicate the season, the approximate time of night, the direction of travel needed to reach a destination. This knowledge is not specialized, the way it might be for a navigator in other cultures. It is simply part of being a person who has grown up under this sky, who has traveled across this land, who has needed, on countless nights, to know where he was and where he needed to go. He looks up now at the full sweep of the sky, the familiar patterns, the ones he has used his whole life, and the countless stars that have no practical use, too faint, too numerous, simply part of the vast background against which the useful stars stand out. He has wondered sometimes about those stars, the ones with no purpose as far as he can tell, just there, existing, adding to the brightness and complexity of the night sky without serving any function he can identify. Perhaps, he thinks, this is itself a kind of lesson, though he is wary of finding lessons in everything, a habit some of the scholars in his service seem unable to avoid. Perhaps not everything needs a function. Perhaps some things simply are, and that is sufficient. The thought does not lead anywhere in particular, but it sits with him, comfortably, as he watches the stars. The wind has not stopped all evening. It rarely does, on the steppe, not the violent wind of a storm, just the constant moving air that is simply how the atmosphere behaves in a place with no mountains to block it, no forest to slow it, nothing but grass and hills for thousands of miles. Genghis Khan has lived with this wind his entire life, has stopped, mostly, noticing it consciously, the way a person stops noticing the sound of their own breathing. But occasionally, on nights like this, sitting still for long enough, he becomes aware of it again, the way it moves across his face, the sound it makes in the grass, a constant whispering, shifting in pitch and intensity as the wind itself shifts, the way it carries scents, grass, earth, the distant smell of the herds, wood smoke from the camp behind him. This wind has been blowing, more or less, for as long as the steppe has existed, will continue blowing long after every person currently alive is gone, has blown across this same grass during every event of his life, his childhood, the years of struggle, the unification, the campaigns. There is something in this continuity that he finds, again, peaceful. The wind does not care about empires, does not care about conquest or unification or the rise and fall of dynasties. It simply moves, as it has always moved, across this vast and ancient land. He breathes it in, cold, slightly, carrying the specific sense of this particular place, this particular night. And underneath everything else, the same wind that has always blown here. He allows himself on nights like this to take stock, not with pride exactly. Pride is a simpler emotion than what he actually feels. Something more like recognition, acknowledgement of scale. He was born with nothing, less than nothing, a target, a liability, a boy whose survival was actively inconvenient to people more powerful than his family. He unified for the first time in history all the peoples of the Mongolian steppe. He built a military system that has proven repeatedly unmatched by any opposing force. He has expanded the territory under Mongol control to a size that, as far as the scholars in his service can determine, exceeds any empire that has previously existed. He has done this within a single lifetime, within his own lifetime, starting from the position he started from. These are facts. He states them to himself on nights like this, the way he might review a map or a set of accounts. Not bragging. There is no one here to brag to, and bragging has never particularly interested him. Just accounting, understanding the shape of what has happened, and alongside this accounting, always the other side of it, the cost, the cities destroyed, the populations reduced, in some cases drastically. He does not pretend to himself that this cost was small, or that it can be balanced neatly against the achievements. Both things are true, simultaneously. What he has built is extraordinary. What it cost to build it was also extraordinary. He has stopped trying to resolve this into a single judgment, good or bad, justified or not. It simply is what it is. The largest fact of his life, sitting alongside all the smaller facts, none of them canceling out any of the others. In the distance he can see the lights of the main camp, fires, dozens of them, scattered across a wide area where the gurs, the round felt tents that are the traditional Mongol dwelling, are arranged in their customary patterns. From this distance the camp looks small, a scattering of warm points of light against the vast darkness of the steppe. He knows, of course, that it is not small, that it represents thousands of people, animals, the accumulated apparatus of his court and his family, and the administration of an empire. But from here, on this hill, in this darkness, it looks the way camps have always looked to people standing at a distance from them. Small, warm, human-scaled, a point of light in a vast darkness. He thinks about all the camps he has seen from distances like this, over the decades, the camps of his childhood, when his family had almost nothing, the camps of the years of struggle, when the survival of his small group of followers was genuinely uncertain, the vast camps of recent years, armies on campaign, gathering points for forces drawn from across the breadth of the empire, and this camp tonight, his main camp, his family, all of them, from a distance, looking essentially the same, points of light, warmth against the cold and dark of the steppe night. He will return to it soon, will sleep tonight in his ger, among his family, as he has slept on countless nights across his long life. But for now, he sits here, on this hill, looking at the lights from a distance, seeing for a moment the smallness and warmth of human life against the enormity of everything else. Eventually he rises, his body at 58, after this much sitting in the cold night air, protests slightly, a stiffness in the knees, the lower back, that he has become accustomed to. He stands for a moment, looking out one more time at the steppe under the now risen moon, the silver grass moving in wind, the hills soft-edged in the moonlight, the vast sky with its familiar and unfamiliar stars, the camp lights in the distance, waiting. He walks to where his horse is grazing. The horse lifts its head as he approaches, recognizes him, the way horses recognize the people who have cared for them for years. He takes the reins, mounts, with the ease of a man who has been doing this since before he could properly walk, despite the stiffness. The horse begins to move toward the camp lights at an easy walk. No hurry. The night is calm. The way is familiar. Behind him, his guards, who have waited at a respectful distance throughout his time on the hill, fall into position, following at the appropriate distance. The wind continues. The grass continues to move under the moon, and across the vast territory that bears, in some sense, his name, from the steppes where he was born to the conquered cities thousands of miles away. The night continues, messengers riding, garrisons keeping watch, families sleeping in their jeurs, much as his own family sleeps in theirs, all of it under the same sky he has watched his entire life, all of it for tonight, at peace. He reaches the edge of the camp. The fires are burning low now. Most of the camp is asleep or settling towards sleep. A few figures move quietly between the jeurs, guards on their rounds, someone tending a fire, the ordinary small activities of a camp at night. He dismounts near his own ger. A boy, one of the many young relatives and attendants who live within the extended household, comes to take the horse. Genghis Khan pauses for a moment before going inside, looks back one more time at the steppe behind him, dark now except for the moonlight, the hill where he sat, no longer visible at this distance, the grass moving as it always moves. He goes inside. The ger is warm, a small fire still burning in the central hearth, the felt walls holding the heat against the cold outside. Berta is asleep on the far side of the hearth. He settles onto his own bedding, quietly, so as not to wake her, lies still for a moment, looking up at the smoke hole at the apex of the gyre, through which a small circle of night sky is visible, a few stars framed by the dark circle of the opening, the same stars he was looking at a few minutes ago from the hill, the same sky. He closes his eyes. Let your own breathing slow now, all the way down. Feel the weight of your body, heavy and still and warm, like a ger settled against the cold steppe night, walls that hold warmth, a fire burning low, the sound of wind outside, distant and steady. You do not need to conquer anything tonight. You do not need to build anything, or hold anything together, or worry about what comes after. Just this warmth, just this stillness, just the small circle of sky, visible through the opening above you, filled with stars that have always been there and will always be there. In and out, in and out. The wind moves across the grass outside. The fires of the camp burn low, one by one, into embers. The moon climbs higher, silver light spreading across an empire that stretches further than any single mind can hold. And somewhere in the heart of it, in a ger on the steppe where everything began, a man who built more than almost anyone in history closes his eyes and sleeps down and down into the deep, still sleep of someone who has seen the whole shape of his life tonight under the stars and found it for this moment enough. Sleep well, traveler. The steppe is endless. The wind will blow tonight as it always has, and somewhere under the same sky, Genghis Khan is sleeping too.